Welcome in, everybody, to another week of XFL Weekly. The semifinals of the XFL just happened. The two teams taking place, or I guess facing off against each other in the championship game, are the Defenders and the Renegades, and we'll get into that. But first, we are XFL Weekly. We discuss anything and everything XFL Weekly. This week, it just happens to be a little bit of a recap of the semifinals. I'm your one co-host, Kyle Krajewski, joined by beautiful as always, Zach Cole.
Beautiful, but is in desperate need of a haircut. So I'm sorry, Kyle. I see you're aerodynamic right now. I like it.
Yes,
I'm in desperate need of a haircut. Not to take this too far off track, but I'm doing good. Thank you.
lovely to hear. Lovely to hear. We are XFL Weekly. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at XFL_Weekly. If you're listening to us as a podcast, we are on YouTube at XFL Weekly. And if you're watching us on YouTube, you can listen to us anywhere you get your podcasts at XFL Weekly. Feel free, subscribe, rate, all that fun stuff. But I'll tell you all that stuff again later in the episode. But getting into the meat of it, before we get into the semifinal recap, head coach of the year was just announced. Like, as we were getting set up, they announced Reggie Barlow, head coach of the Defenders, was named coach of the year. Shout out to him. I think if we had discussed it, Zach, I don't think we would have argued against that. I think we would have both come to terms and said, yeah, it's Reggie Barlow taking a 9-1 Defenders squad, and now they're in the championship. Great season.
I mean, both sides of the ball. He showed that he was deserving of coach of the year. I mean, obviously kudos to his OC, his defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator. But I mean, it takes a good head coach to run a tight ship. So it had to be pretty clear that he was going to be the man with the plan. I think if I had to give a second place vote to anyone, I would probably turn my attention up to Seattle and give that to Jim Haslett, give him a little nod there. I mean, they started off, what was it, maybe 0-2, 0-3, and then knocked out 7 straight games or 6 straight games or something along those lines. So he did a really good job there as well. So kudos to him. Just another shout out. But Barlow's clearing away I think the best choice.
Yeah, Barlow was the guy. I think we could have made that choice halfway through the season, but good to know he kind of kept that mantle, kept that high energy, quality gameplay going through the end of the season. 9-1. Shout out to him. Shout out to Reggie Barlow.
Shout out.
All right, let's recap these semifinals, Zach. We had two incredible games take place, but one, I don't know. I think I expected 2 close games, and I feel like we didn't get that. But either way, 2 great football games that took place in late April. What else can you really ask for? And it was it was playoff football, so things were on the line rather than just a notch in the win column. Game 1, Renegades versus the Roughnecks. We saw an immense upset. I don't think anybody really picked the Renegades, but shout out to you if you did. Renegades came away with an enormous upset victory over the Roughnecks, 26-11. I think we both picked the spread in favor of the Roughnecks last week, which just kind of says that we knew Houston was going to win, or thought Houston was going to win. And I think it was set at 6.5. We both thought it was going to be a touchdown victory, and it was very much the opposite. 26-11. Great job, Renegades.
Yeah, this game was kind of out of hand, I would say, from a really early point. I mean, it had the intensity of being a playoff game, and you could tell that the Roughnecks were really just trying to kind of get something going the whole game. But I mean, the Renegades did a great job of kind of smothering that out. And Kyle, I think last week we talked. I think I mentioned 20 points seemed to be that that threshold, and the Renegades hit 20 points, and they kept the Roughnecks under 20 points, and those were like the 2 checks they had to hit for them to win this game. So, I mean, I'm not overly surprised by the outcome. We did see Brandon Silvers try to play a little bit in this game for the Roughnecks. He was in the late first quarter, but that was about the last time we saw him in this game. So it just and they haven't had the same spark. We mentioned it last week under Cole McDonald. So like I said, I'm disappointed by the outcome, obviously, as a Roughnecks truther here. But kudos to the Renegades. They did a great job in limiting the Roughnecks, and I think it had a lot in part to do with the Renegade offense.
Yeah, which is a surprise that after being, I think they were statistically one of the worst offenses in the league this season.
Probably them and the
And
Brahmas. Yeah.
yeah, and to come out and play great on both sides of the football, to put up points on offense and keep the Roughnecks from scoring on defense was huge. But I just got to give a shout out to Luis Perez. I mean,
Seriously.
to be traded from the Vegas Vipers to the Renegades looking for that offensive spark, and it might have taken a little bit longer than they would have liked, but they found it at the right time. I mean, to come out, Perez came away with 3 touchdowns just in the first half, and it seemed to be all that they really needed to keep this game
Hmm.
just in their hands. And I mean, you texted me during the game that every week the XFL is awesome because we get that random receiver that just goes off. And this week's random receiver to go off was Javonte Payton
Yep.
for the Renegades. 5 receptions, 121 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Just offensively, things clicked for the Renegades, and it just clicked at the perfect time against a team in the Roughnecks that was struggling already, and the Renegades just showed up and took advantage of that.
Yeah, and Luis Perez and you mentioned Peyton. They were definitely highlights of this game, but I think we also have to tip our hats a little bit to Davion Smith, the running back for Arlington here, who
Yes.
ran the ball 24 times for 94 yards. That's a tough, gritty game for a running back to have there. That's 4 or 5 yards a carry. That's we need a first down. We can give the ball to that guy, and that security blanket is just such a luxury for a team to have. So Davion Smith was probably one of the unsung heroes. He didn't find the end zone. You mentioned Luis Perez threw for all 3 touchdowns, and Peyton hauled in 2, and Brandon Arcanado brought in the other one. But I mean, Davion Smith really was just kind of, like I said, the security blanket for this team, and
Yeah.
and helped push them over the edge. So shout out to Arlington.
Yeah, and another quick shout out to Luwan Winningham, who I think has 2 of probably the top 3 or 5 receptions in the XFL this season. He had one earlier this year, but just this past week had an incredible snag. Dude has hands, can bring the ball in at all angles, pretty much. And Renegades, shout out to you.
Hmm.
Great game. Great
Hmm.
week to decide to put everything together, not just on offense, not just on defense. Everything clicked. Everything looked really well. And see you in the championship.
Definitely. They played much better than the record indicates. They did not look like a 4-6 team in this game. They looked the opposite way, 6-4, 7-3. So I'm fired up to see what they can do against DC.
Yeah, hopefully we've got a good one coming up. And then the final game of the weekend, to the other title game for the North. Sea Dragons at Defenders. We saw 2 incredible teams, 2 teams that just, I think you and I both agree, they were the 1 and 2 of the entire XFL this season.
Hmm.
Um, Defenders came away with a pretty commanding victory, 37-21, and in their home field, it was, I mean, at halftime it was 9-9, and I think at that point it truly was anybody's game, and
Yep.
that's the beauty of two halves of football, where the second half for any given team can just be more dominating than the first, and
Yeah.
that's what we saw.
Yeah, and that's really the story of this game is that the Sea Dragons came out sleepy out of halftime. You alluded to it. The defenders came out and put up 14 points on the board in the third quarter to the compared to the Sea Dragons 0 points. So that was really, I mean, that was the swinging point in this game, and you can kind of tell that from the 16-point victory. You take away that 16 points and or the 14 points that they scored in the third quarter, and it's right there. It's a close game, but I was pleased, I guess, to see Ben DiNucci had himself a really nice game, kind of a good one to go out on. He managed over 30 completions in this game,
Yeah,
and took care of the ball, no interceptions, 3 touchdowns. Like he had a
Led the
really,
team
really
in
nice
in
game
rushing yards again.
yet again. And I think that that might be where we saw the defenders fall or the Sea Dragons fall short in this game. Now, granted, the whole second half they're playing catch up football, so yes, they're gonna pass the ball out in that situation. But I mean, their rushing column, they ran for 13 total yards in this game, with Danucci having
Five total
16.
rushes.
Yeah, Danucci having 16 rush yards and Philip Lindsay having -3, which is kind of impressive in its own right. But um, when you take away one facet of your offense, it makes you really one-dimensional, and it makes you pretty easy to stop. And I think that DC kind of picked up on that and was able to shut them down in the run game. And really, they just never tried to establish it for the rest of the game. So that was, I think, a huge gap in the Sea Dragons game plan here. Was relying a little bit too heavily on the run game or on the pass game. I'm sorry.
Yeah, they just threw and threw and threw and threw, and I wouldn't say DC was able to really stop them, but I mean to prevent them from scoring is plenty. But Danucci still getting 30 completions, close to 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. Great game from him. But
Heck of a game.
you gotta get some rushing in there at least. But the defenders, what a commanding win. As a Defenders fan, I'm pumped. I should have my hat here with me. I don't. I was too excited wearing it all day on Sunday. It needed to be washed. But man, I'm excited to see them play in the championship. This was a dominant team all season, and I'm very happy that they continued to look just dominant into this past week. But yeah, I mean, the fourth quarter I think is interesting because we saw 4 touchdowns scored by 2 people. Cameron Harris had 2 rushing touchdowns, with Juwan Green from Seattle having 2 receiving touchdowns. That I just seeing that is funny. Just a random little nitpick that I saw there. But yeah, I mean, DC, both sides of the ball just kind of kept things in their own hands. The fate was truly just on their side the whole time, and they commanded it. If it weren't for the final 12-second touchdown from Seattle, this would have looked even more of a commanding, dominant victory from DC.
And I think, not to preview too much, because I think we're going to get into that next week, but I think that for DC, if they want to win the championship against the Renegades, I think we've seen time and time again, if you can put up points on the Renegades, you can beat the Renegades. So for DC, they're going to have to keep the formula the same that it is. 37 points should be able to get them a victory in the XFL Championship. So they're on the right path, and they do it through the air, they do it on the ground, they do a little bit of it all. So it's exciting to watch them. They're an exciting team to watch play.
Yeah, and I mean, again, not to get too deep into it, but we saw this Renegades Defenders matchup week 9, where Renegades were able to score offensively and DC also scored, but it became a DC victory in overtime. So if we kind of get that overtime matchup again in the championship,
could be a great game.
I'm in.
Yep.
And all signs kind of point to us potentially getting that again.
I think it would be the best thing possible for the XFL would be to have a nice, tight, nail biting championship game.
Let's hope, but we'll get into that next week. That was our, I guess, mini recap of the semifinals. The 2 incredible games we watched this past week. Keeping things short this week, as next week we'll get into a championship preview. We'll discuss the championship, what to look for, what we're looking for, what we're excited about, and just kind of preview the matchup between the Renegades and the Defenders. And then next week we'll also discuss, I think currently they're announcing the end of year awards. So next week we'll have kind of all of those under our belt to be able to, 1, mention, and 2, chat about, because just today, the first award was announced, Reggie Barlow, Coach of the Year. And by next week, we'll have them all. And with that being said, again, keeping it short, but we had a giveaway this past week, Zach. $50 XFL gift card. And Zach and I ran the numbers. We did the random generator thing, and we can announce that the winner of the $50 XFL store gift card, is Peter Sauer. Unfortunately, he picked the Sea Dragons to win, and they are no longer able to win the XFL Championship. However, you're still a winner. You commented on YouTube. I'll respond to your comment, figure out how to get this gift card in your hands, but we'll get that sorted out. Once again, congratulations, Peter Sauer. We'll get that information to you. And again, everybody, thank you for entering. It was just nice to see everybody kind of participate for this fun, cool thing we wanted to do as a thank you. So, Peter Sauer, look out for a comment.
Yeah, and hopefully we can do some more of these moving forward too, Kyle. This was a blast to do to give back to those who listen to us and give their time to us. So congratulations to Peter, and hopefully we can do some more in the future.
Yes, and that's the goal. We'll have a few towards the end of the year, maybe preparing for the next 2024 season. Well, we've much to discuss, but our hopes are to kind of get these giveaways, kind of get everybody involved as a huge thank you for tuning in.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, Zach. Again, short one. I think we can wrap it right there.
I think so too. It's we're down to that time of the year where there's not much to talk about anymore. Now we just got the big game to look forward to, and we don't have as much to break down. So this is it for this week, I guess.
I think so. And be on the lookout next week. Championship preview. Next week's the big episode. This is kind of our break week, I should say. We're not taking a break. We're still here for you. But in terms of just looking ahead, we're saving all that for next week. So don't you worry. We've got so much numbers to crunch. We want to give you our best picks and best insight into this game. And without further ado, thank you for tuning in. We are XFL Weekly. Find us anywhere and everywhere, XFL Weekly. And Zach, it was another week of pleasure chatting with you.
Always a pleasure, my friend. Always.
Always. Thanks, guys.
See ya.